Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Granger and Ranking Member DeLauro, Chair Carter, and Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz. I'm really concerned by this fiscal year 2024 military construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill. This legislation, I might just say, I think I served on the Veterans Committee the first decade I began my service, and until it was taken away this past time, I served on it again. This legislation, as originally presented by the majority during the Milcon VA subcommittee markup, severely defunds veterans' health care by weakening the toxic exposure fund by over $14 billion. That's not million, that's billions of dollars. Congress created the Toxic Exposure Fund on a bipartisan basis to ensure those service members and veterans impacted by burn pits and toxic exposure are not left behind now or ever. I served on the Veterans Affairs Committee last Congress when Republicans and Democrats worked together to pass the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxics Act of 2022, known as the PACT Act. Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson was an Ohioan. He deployed to Kosovo and Iraq with the Ohio National Guard. He died in 2020 from toxic exposure after serving his country most honorably. He was a sergeant, first class. I know through his family the complicated health struggles Heath endured, having been cared for by his wife and mother-in-law, Susan Zier of Sandusky, Ohio. My constituent, Susan, is a fierce advocate who was instrumental in fighting for the PACT Act's success. And I've met countless veterans and families similar to Heath impacted by toxic and burn pit exposure. Knowing how much Heath could have benefited from the PACT Act and how much he suffered and they suffered with him, I simply could not comprehend Republican efforts to dismantle and defund these imperative veterans' benefits. For those brave service members who have heroically returned to our homeland, but carry with them the injuries of toxic and burn pit exposure, America has an obligation to make good on President Lincoln's command to care for those who have borne the battle. Fully funding the PACT Act is a critical priority for Democrats. And I must reiterate that if you look at the funding of positions within the VA, they're 15,000 short. So when they can't help, sometimes it's because the staff just isn't there. They are short from coast to coast. We must fund those empty slots. I stand united with my colleagues to support our U.S. military and all our troops who return home with wounds. The majority mustn't turn their back on the promise and commitment to those who have so faithfully and courageously served us all. However, without an amendment championed by congressional Democrats, this bill simply breaks America's promise to our veterans. Thank you, and I yield back.